But say we were to send the I'll go through in order. 0 sends a 0 into the into the record engine and tells it not to record anything. But at the same time, it sends a series of zeros to the unpack object, which throughputs them all: a 0 to here, a 0 to here, a 0 to here, and a 0 to here. The 0 is selected by each of these select objects through to a message which says stop. Okay, so stop is always being sent for each of these groove objects, which means nothing will play. So 0, which was to not play anything or to reset, doesn't play anything. I send number 1. We will remember that we get a 1 message going over to here, setting to my buffer 1 and starting recording into that buffer. But at the same time, we have a series of zeros coming through the left-hand outlet of col into these various groove objects. And again, it tells them all to stop, because we don't actually want to to play anything back when we're recording the first buffer. Choose number 2. A 2 goes into the right-hand, the record engine, and again the buffer is set to my buff 2 and it starts recording into my buff 2. At the same time, through the left-hand outlet of col, we get the message 1000. That goes into the unpack object, and 1 is sent to this engine here, and 0s are sent to all the rest of these 3 engines. Goes through the select object. It isn't selected because it's not a 0 in this first one, it's a number 1. So that goes through to groove and tells it to start playing back at millisecond number 1. So it will play back that first my buff 1, because the groove is referring to my buff 1. The remaining groove objects don't play anything at all. We choose number 3. 3 goes down into the record engine and selects my buff 3 and starts to record into my buff 3. Out of the left-hand outlet of col, we get the numbers 1100, which goes into the unpack object, 2 1s in the first 2 outlets here, 2 zeros into the second 2 outlets. And those the 1s go into here, into out of the right-hand side of the select object, and tell groove to play those buffers. So my buff 1 and my buff 2 will play. Meanwhile, my buff 3 and my buff 4 won't, because they've been sent zeros. And so on. And then finally, when we get to 5, remember that the 5 comes out into the record component down here and tells record not to record anything, because it's recognised by the select object. Meanwhile, out of the left-hand side of col, we get 1111, which means that all of these groove objects will play. So, there we are. A small patch with an extremely extensive explanation. I hope you haven't switched off by this point. If you haven't, congratulations. But hopefully that makes sense. There we are. I'll shut up now. Except that I won't shut up, because there's one thing more that I wanted to explain to you, and that is the presentation view, which I said I would explain at the beginning and then didn't. So you can choose certain objects which will be included in the presentation view, and you can resize them, and basically it's designed so that you can choose only the elements of the patch that you want to be visible to your end user, and have them visible at the front end as a front end. And so in this instance, I've chosen these waveform display objects. I don't need the buffers to be displayed. I don't need the set my buff messages to be displayed, any of that rubbish. But I do want these number boxes to be displayed. But I might want to have them in sort of arranged so that they more obviously refer to these waveform objects down here. I want the volume controls to be visible, and I want perhaps these means of turning the DSP on and off. I want them to be visible. The rest of the stuff I don't necessarily need. but I also want these instructions. So what I've done, if I unlock the patch again, you will see that I have chosen particular objects that I want to be displayed, and I have they all have a sort of a pinkish glow about them. And to get that glow, you choose the object and then you go to the object menu and add to presentation. You can see it also has a shortcut, so you can use that. So I choose add to presentation, and at that point, if I go into presentation mode, not only do the bits which were originally there sort of pop back into place, but also this unpack object has appeared, and I can resize that in that view. It doesn't change how it is displayed in the patcher view. You notice that it's as big as it was before, but it shrinks because I told it to in the presentation view. So all objects will have a sort of a look or display type in either view, and it may be different. And you can choose it. You can move things around so that it suits you and suits how you want your patch to ultimately look. When you want to remove something from presentation view, incidentally, you make sure it's selected, go to object and choose remove from presentation. Whoops. There's much more about this in the documentation, but that's how presentation works in a nutshell, and it can be very useful.